The junk drawer. I hate losing things. But sometimes I hate the things I find when I am looking for the things I have lost. Things that I meant you forget, things that brought back some of the darker memories. It could be a simple thing, from a penny that you found that slipped out of a pocket of a person that was hit by a car, or a set of keys that locked doors to things you wished that you could forget. In a town, not too far from the one of this voice, one could find a cinder block building with no windows. Before there was cinder blocks, it was just a wooden shack where horrible things transpired inside. To the ones that knew of it and that had had the misfortune to be inside, it was simply known as the shack. 10 years ago today, a dear friend had that misfortune. A 12-year-old boy, taking from his mother's house on a cold night just days before his mother would have put up the Christmas tree. Everyone and every child feared the story of the man in white. The man in white would pick a child he would watch and learn. He would be seen at schools and parades with a old Nikon 35mm camera. No one knew him or had the courage to ask after what happened to one father sometime before my friend was taken. The father had spotted the man in white watching from tree lines, at bus stops, and would even leave little notes in his mailbox. The man in white was deleted. He had a stalker. It offered something he had not felt in many years. But that quickly went away, when he had to work. The father of the boy was found liquefied in brown glass beer bottles neatly placed and forming the sentence across the father's living room floor. Life would be easier, if you didn't look for Mr. White. The police wouldn't say what he used to turn the father into Mr. White's special sauce, and after some time they didn't look either. Each of the police officers had children of their own and didn't want to upset the thing they could not catch, so the case, like many in this little town, become a dusty pile of papers, that would slowly grow each year. There is a thin line between what you can do and what you can see, and right in the middle is a stupid man confused in which way to walk. The town quickly got the mindset, people die all the time, and strangely people here only die from old age and Mr. White. Some even thought that Mr. White was an incarnation of the town itself and it needed to eat once a year, and that this was the cost of a good town and old age. People have evil habits. They tend to bet on everything from dog fights to who will drop the ball in the Super Bowl, and in this town they would take bets privately whose kid would be taken next. Now I'm an outsider. I live in the crumbling town a few miles from this special place, and yes, this town has grown and prospered when ours hasn't. Not too far from the shack, I didn't know this was the place at the time. There is a fishing hole, and this is where I met my friend and learned the story of the town. Each day we would see each other, walk, talk and laugh. Each day would end on the note that he thought he was next, and each night I wondered what Mr. White did to them, and sometimes I wondered if he did turn them into liquid and drink them throughout the year until it was time to refill his bottles. I thought a lot of thoughts that kept me up at night and made me fear for my friend's life and made me wonder about mine. I wondered if this is how every town worked and some of the demons that run them, or just more thankful for their offerings. In the days of old, people would offer up their firstborn to the gods or monsters that brought terror down upon their town. Could this just be this but modernized? Nothing really changes, just the faces. They change as we do, as we grow and offer for more things. Little things we need to make our lives on this rock better and more delightful, but now the players are all the same. They still roll the same dice and tell the same stories, just different ways. After we pick apart the little things of the world, the stained glass and fancy coffee, we see the evils that have been here for so long still walk and watch behind shadows, only stepping out to take what is theirs when it's time, and those evils have places where they live, in each town, each city, and each state. Mr. White's just happens to be a shack. The day I knew something was wrong, was the day I went to the fishing hole expecting to see my friend, who didn't show. I cast my line and eat my lunch, looking around every other minute for my friend. Wondering if he had met his fate. You know when someone has eyes on you, you just know. The hairs on your back begin to rise, your chest gets heavy and you begin to worry. I have felt this many times and I wondered if it was my time, but no one came to collect. My friend, the day before, had told me, he had this feeling and it was so bad it was hurting him in such a way that he knew, he would soon become the company of Mr. White. As my rod pulled down and almost jumped into the water, I pulled and yanked on my line and the largest catfish jumped up on the bank. The catfish still breathed, pumping and trying to suck the air out of the water that wasn't there. As its chest rose, a sound, and a voice almost a whisper trailed out of its mouth. "He's in the shack, he's in the shack." The fish whipped me across the face, causing me to drop it to the ground. Little drops of fresh blood, my blood hit the fish as it tossed and flipped in the sand, until it stopped. Looking down for a moment, and then back up and then to the left where I heard a crow cry. I saw the shack. Not much of a building, but a building, and a building can be a home. I slowly walked toward the shack. Another crow had joined the first, crying, mocking me, calling me to come faster. When I was younger I was told if you listened to the wind, you could hear it scream, as it carried the screams of all that have felt pain. So the next time it's windy, listen, don't breath, and you just might hear the pain of another. There are some things worse than death, things just beyond that door to the shack. The door was open and welcomed me freely. The size was deceptive. From the outside the shack looked no bigger than a small storage building, but from the inside it was vast. A long stairwell took you down on cold grey stone stairs, bones and roots lined the walls. A slight cold breeze of old things slightly pushed you back as you walked on. Stone chairs, thrones of a forgotten time filled the room, lifeless bodies filled each seat. Each were old, weathered things, but one, my friend, at the head of the room was a large white cocoon. Something moved and twisted inside, much like the fish had done in my hand. My friend looked on with unblinking eyes. He appeared to grow older with each passing minute. I pulled my fiend from his prison only to find he was attached to the large white cocoon by a long sticky tube. It almost reminded me of a spider's web that had been rolled into a straw. A long straw this creature that called himself Mr. White used to feed off his victims. I pulled my fish knives, the one I used to cut bait just hours earlier, and sliced through the white cord with ease. The others, the old ones that sit in the other chairs, moved and twisted. Screams filled the stone chamber, the screams of hunger. That when I realized this was the city stomach, the city's junk drawer, and this was the souls of the lost, its food so that it may grow, and Mr. White was its caretaker. I freed my friend. He was never the same afterward and is still in a home. I hope that he may return one day. That is his mind. I wonder what horrors still run through his head. He still has that unblinking look. I contacted another friend and we went out and took cinder blocks and cement and sealed that shack up, so no one could get in or out. Along the front we installed a large cast iron gate, and this is the key to it that I found in my junk drawer. The town faded away as most do, people left, shops and buildings shut down. Now only a few remain, a few people still hoping their children will return. I didn't have the heart to tell them they were down in the shack.